So let it be written. So let it be done. This is MTD, and you are here for Jasper's Game Day. I want to remind you what you are raising money for, and it is the most amazing cause. We are suicide awareness and prevention is everybody's business. And so the way to make it your business today is to spend $50 for a reroll on the MTD domain dice. You can use those dice, gentlemen, however I'm feeling at the moment. Really, some keep them for themselves, as Mr. Chris Perkins. Some hand them out to their players. We'll just see what happens. But if you are watching, we are very close to breaking $12,000, and I would love for that to happen in this game. Special thanks and shout out to the sponsor of this game, Girls Game Shelf. Super proud to be sponsored by Girls Game Shelf. In Dragon Grin, evil has won. To say that good is in retreat is not even the case anymore, because to be in retreat, you have to have legs and be able to walk. The forces of the righteous were defeated now 2 decades ago. It's a memory. The event called Lightfall is the past. What is the present and what is factual now is that all creatures, whether they wish to or not, bow before the malign might of the dismembered Lord. You're the last chancers. You are a mercenary company that doesn't exactly have a retirement fund. You find the barren wasteland of Uldane preferable to bending the knee in the metropolises of Central Dragongrin. So rather than be subject to the dismembered Lord's firm grasp, you are in the barren wasteland known as Uldane, the northernmost region of Dragongrin. You have the tradition, as the last chancers, of the last hunt. This is where older veteran members take on insane jobs with the expectation that you will likely die. But if you do, the company takes on the care of your dependents. And if you don't, well, plenty of gold wraiths for an insane job well done. As you all are gathered near the experimental battle wagon known as the Death Bat, what are you all doing?
Thatch stands looking into the vast horizon of the waste of Uldane. He would appear human if not for the strange and maddening nuances that are about his image. He has a jutting brow and sunken eyes and silvery skin, and his pointed ears jut out of a mane of wild hair that betrays his heritage as a Festia. His strange visage is equaled by the strange racings within his mind as he considers and interprets the whispers of the bleak, the constant roiling arcane storm. He hears the whispers of the bleak, and he is its will. He has heard a voice calling from within it. In the tongue of the bleak's speech. In common tongue, it translates as last chance. This is why he's here. This is why he's become part of the last chances. And trying to interpret this voice, he looks to his companions to see what they're doing and prepares to tell them what he has witnessed or read.
Give me the big boy. No, the big one. Avanor's underneath the Death Bat, and he's sort of in pieces of his armor, and he like pokes his head out. He has this like bristly hair, more like spines than hair, and like a significant underbite, like a poked up nose and some tusks. He would look like a boar if he wasn't so human looking. And he like reaches this big meaty hand out, like expecting someone to give him the big boy, which is like the biggest wrench that we have, which we use to tighten all the things that are falling apart. And he like clicks his fingers a few times. Big boy.
You see a figure wrapped in lots of cloth, almost burlap looking, with very decorative, colorful edges, look up from his map and stand up just a second, and back cracks and reaches for the big boy, sinking to the ground a little further, handing it to you. There you go. Koro is human, cracked skin from the wind. He's a Grimdul, so he's used to the wind and the dry climate, nomadic people. Life has been hard on him, but he plans to be hard on it for one last time, at least here.
Govok, come help. He's like, his arm is like shaking from holding the big boy as he's like trying to get it under the death bat to tighten this thing.
The steady rhythm that accompanies Govok whenever he's with you on the crew, of the loading and thunk, thunk, loading and firing of his great heavy crossbow without any bolts in it. He kind of rolls his eyes and groans as he leans the crossbow against the side of the death bat, gets up and comes over. And he's a big hulking figure covered in matted fur, and he's got these leathered sort of bat-like wings that sort of partly wrap around his body, encasing him as much as his leather armor. He comes over and grabs the big boy, or one end of the big boy, to helps you turn it.
All right, that should hold for now. He'll like slide himself out from under and stand, and keep standing. He's pretty large, and then we'll like wipe some sweat from his brow and flick it into the sand, and then place the marrow sort of skull helmet over his head again.
That's fantastic. And did we want to decide that Ravenor was the war master for the Last Chancers? Right.
Gets my vote.
Yeah. Right. So all right. So we're gonna do that. Well, so Ravenor, as you stand up, someone else approaches you, and you can see that they have this strange sort of series of bars and looks like primordial bone, this sort of like straight line. It's maybe 7 or 8 feet. It's about as large around as a fence post, and it's laying there. And this Darrow comes up, this Grimdul Darrow, who is dressed in these neatly kept leather clothes, this sort of tied back brown hair, with this thanium and primordial bone pendant. Sir, it's ready. The Drake Wing is ready. And you know that he's talking specifically about the method that you're going to try. And who knows whose idea it was, who knows whose harebrained scheme, but it's the method that you're going to try to use to complete today's mission. The Kawar is an enormous primordial that lives in Uldane. You know that it's starving. It's always starving. And it's simply looking for food. And this is what Durzag says to you. He's like, it's just the grins that it digs up for sustenance have, how do you say, grown scarce. It's creeping further and further down to where we live. Not because the creature is malicious, but because it is an enormous force of nature. As we've said, you can't stop the Kawar, but what if you could guide it? So with some modifications we've done to the death bat and the proper bait, we can lead the creature somewhere else to eat. Anyway, the Drake wing is if you're ready to see it, I'd love to show it.
Yes, thank you. He says, and I've never encountered a person who requires this many words to say such a small thing. It's not what he's used to from his days in the Legion, and so he'll sort of nod politely until finally he's just saying yes.
And this Grimdal Durzog, who obviously has Kearney blood, it turns out, is he walks over to that strange contraption and he hits a couple of pieces and he kicks the side of it, and this enormous sort of draconic kite springs open to it as he pulls this lever, this large piece, the frame made of thanium, a primordial bone, and these red dyed primordial leather flaps burst open, and it's fashioned in the shape of a dragon. If it thinks that there's a dragon alive, it will follow it to eat it, and so kite the Kawar. And so essentially, the last ride of the death bat, as was previously decided by your war master here, is that you can't kill Kawar, but you can lead it somewhere else, and you're going to try to use the Drake wing to do so. This enormous, fairly robust and durable, draconic-looking kite. And so that is the mission that you've all decided on today. And so Durzog looks to you, Lloyd, and then kind of everyone else, because the last chancers are probably a little more, I would say, open to suggestions than what you're used to. And maybe that's tough for you. Maybe you're used to giving orders and having orders followed, where this is a mercenary company. So he says, we've been researching food sources. And so everyone else here, who would have been good at helping research the different food sources that you have options to go to? Who's got survival or who's got some sort of natural instinct that would be able to find some of these food sources for Kawar?
Kawar is, apologies, after you.
Well, I'm a warden, I guess, in which is a ranger, essentially. Yep. And definitely have some talents in that region. So when I can pull my nose out of my maps, I certainly am good at finding what I need to survive.
That's fantastic. And then Rob, did you have something to add to that?
The Kawar is an ancient beast, a herald from another time, twisted by the energies of the bleak. I shall consult its will to learn if there is any advantage we can gain for this baneful creature. Basically, Timmy could look into the bleak to see different timelines. Do with that what you will.
No, I absolutely love that. So let's brainstorm that. So here's what I'm going to do. So Nate, what I'm going to need is an intelligence nature check or any sort of survival check that would work. So let me know what you get on that. And while we roll that, Rob, let's talk through what sorts of the way that I want to kind of play this, if you're down with it, is looking at the future is like flipping through an encyclopedia that's murky. So what page are you trying to turn to? Right? So like, where do you cast your gaze so that you don't see some errant, strange thing that isn't important? What are you looking for specifically? And then we'll work from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And Thatch is not used at all to getting straight answers out of the bleak. It is very nebulous. And it is all alternate, outcomes, all possibilities. It's very Doctor Strange. But he's looking to see if there's anything in particular that will truly sort of like stoke its ire, make it really fervently want to chase us.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
perhaps in the past, maybe something has enraged it before, other than our bait that we already have.
No, absolutely. And so describe to me what you would see related to something maternal or something having to do with laying eggs or some sort of birth, some sort of thing like that. What weird twisted version of the future do you see that has to do with that? Because that's the inkling you're getting. You're getting this strange vibe of something like that.
Yeah, he sees a vision of ancient beings that used to stalk the wastes of Uldane, perhaps before they were even wastes, before they were ravaged in this way. And he sees these people desperately dragging a great sledge across the landscape with an egg upon it. And considers that perhaps something that he could use to their advantage.
Yeah. And so you feel it in your bones, in your monstrous bones. You can feel it. You know this, and you can see in this future that there's something even more dangerous going on here. And you probably couldn't convince anyone else of it. It's a sixth sense feeling to you, but you feel like the Kawar is eating so much because she's about to lay eggs. Which could be devastating even on its own, but you have a sense. You have no way of proving that, but in the future you see that strange, weird myth, you kind of have that sense of what's going on. Yeah. So I'll leave it up to you whether or not you share that with everyone else and how you share it. So we'll leave that as character information that you have.
Yeah, he's just going to dwell on that for the moment, sort of stroking his hand through his long beard and thinking of how this could be used to their advantage, but he'll keep quiet about it for the moment.
Love it. And then we do have one reroll available. As of now, we'll see what's happening. I kind of have an idea that I think I want to roll off for it. Like when it's time to use it, if you want to use it, let's roll against each other. I think that would be fun. I think that's fun. So, Nate, what'd you get on that roll?
If I'm doing survival, I got 17.
That's perfect. Yeah. So you have actually found 2 possible food sources. Right now, you guys are like right in the center of Uldane in a place called the Rattling Flats. So you can essentially see either coast as having possible food sources. One is a recently unearthed dragon's grin. So this is not common that a new dragon's grin would emerge, but this one seems to have some sort of strange necrotic properties. So you've heard and you sensed and you've looked in that direction. And that would be toward the west coast. Toward the east coast, you know that there is actually a massive hive of these insects known as kites, Kyte, and their queen. And so this is one of their huge nests. And so that is to the east. Either would be an exceptional source of food for the Kawar, and either would probably rid Dragon Grin of some sort of a blight, even in a place like Uldane.
Yeah, so looking down at my map and kind of looking up at the sun, and then you see Koro kind of using his arm to kind of see where the shadow falls. And says, well, I think we have 2 options here. We have a nest, a kite's nest that way would be a good source of food. But there's also been a recent dragon grin that way, according to this map here. Either one would be a fine source. What are we feeling, my mutated friends?
Avenor is in conversation with the little guy, and he's like got this contract out, and he's pointing to it, and he's like reading specific parts, like, well, pursuant to Article 84, Subclause 11G, you will ensure that provisions are made that in the event of our deaths, that this is the amount of silver, and he's like going through all this. And then he hears the word dragon's grin, and he like stops and looks in that direction, and he knows that that equals money very often. And he says, "Dragon grin," I'd say. Now, if you'll note under Article 11, and he'll go back to debating with this guy.
That's fantastic.
Not a big fan of bugs either, so that's
I love that. Gavok, I was going to ask you if because, as you know, being who you are and with your heritage and your culture, sort of, there are a lot of Festir here, but I think that you would maybe know, as with your size, you know of the legends of the creatures in Uldane known as the Doomsayers. Essentially, the Doomsayers are these extraplanar creatures that have some sort of deal. They've struck some sort of deal with the Dismembered Lord. No one knows exactly what's going on, but they dwell very far north, and in this place called the Everbleak. So it is, in fact, so constantly the bleak that often in Dragongrin, people don't say northward, they say bleakward, because that's where it always is. You know, and it's just another option. It's just another option. This would ring in you that you know that the Doomsayers lair in a place called Guldrock, the Brighthold, and it is far north. And it would at least spark in your mind that this could be an opportunity to potentially lay a hit against the Doomsayers like nothing else could. Now, how you choose to act on that information, I just feel like it just struck me as a DM of like, I feel like that would cross your mind. So you can mention it or not, whatever. But I just thought you'd probably know that based on what you told me about your character.
Absolutely, it would, especially because Govok is of the Granok Thane, and this Uldane was once their homeland. And when it was blasted to what it is now, they were forced from it. And so, to varying degrees, members of the Granok Thane want to reclaim this homeland, and that burns quite strongly within Govok. He's older. He's hoping that this final flight of the death bat, that he'll be able to make a good end, I think, is what he's hoping for here. But a secondary thing is that he can hopefully use the rampaging of the Kuar to help maybe pave the way for the Granok Thane to be able to reclaim Uldane. So he would absolutely point that out. Do we know where the Kuar is emerging from?
That's a really, really good question. So as of right now, you know that there have been sightings north of you. So you don't know exactly where, but the person who was just speaking a moment ago, Durzog, that little Grimdal Darrow, is certain that you are within 30 miles clear horizon of where it will emerge based on its patterns. So, as I say, the only thing I really thought in terms of like where you would be was starting out on in the center in that Rattling Flats. So I was going to sort of randomize exactly where it emerged when it does within that sort of 30-mile distance. So it'll either make your task easy or difficult depending on which direction you chose. Because Guldrock, the Brighthold, is north. You know, you have, and then the other option west and the other option east. So right now, the Kuar would definitely be coming from the north. But where on that Everbleak line is tough to say.
So Govok would, I think he'd go up to Ravenor and stand there with this imposing presence of standing behind the little man, waiting for him to finish talking with our War Master. And when they're done, he would say, Warmaster. It would pull you aside, actually, Ravenor, because you would know as well that he was sorry, got me in the chat. He was framed basically as wrongly accused of assisting the Copper Jackals. And so he's basically on a fugitive from the Dismembered Lord and the Dismembered Legions. And so that's a recent state of affairs. And so he is, that's what's really clenched this drive that he's on to, no, let's hit a blow and get back the Gran Octane homeland at the same time. So he would come over and point that out. A true grin may be tempting for the Qua, but if our Drakewing decoy is made tasty enough, we may send it bleakward and towards the Brighthold, and he'll sort of leave that there for you to try and interpret his meaning there.
Yeah, you can see he's doing some calculations in his head. Ravenor is also a Gran Octane, and I think maybe caught you for your supposed crime and realized you were innocent, and we left together. And he also has a real interest in reclaiming his homeland. It's like a central part of his being. And although maybe it's not the best choice, it's the one that strikes him as most important. And so he'll nod. We go north.
Lead the way. Are we, Tim, are we riding this thing all the way there? Is that the plan?
That's currently the plan. Yeah, the plan is to basically get in it and then just drive it and kite the Kawar. So basically, you are the arcanic, like, death bat with this long string of this huge dragon kite, and the idea is that the Kawar is going to follow the kite. So it's going to be a matter of not getting caught. So if the Kawar catches the kite and it's not food, what will it do? But then also not go so quickly that it loses interest, and it just kind of turns and eats something else or tries to go somewhere else. So yeah, that's the idea. Is it's going to be like a chase. Once you embark, is going to kind of be like, it's all going to take place on the death bat.
Awesome.
Speaking of which, from the other side of the death bat, from where you saw Ravenor was on one side, slid out from other, there's someone else that's tinkering in this huge arcanic engine. And he sort of pops up and he says, all right, there are about a dozen Devastators, but the death bat, as we know, is very special. I have modified her using an arcanic engine, the likes of which you have never seen. You'd never seen a battle wagon move like this. And so this is Krokar. And Krokar is the mechanic, the official formal mechanic of the death bat. And he has a mind for Arkans unlike anyone else. And he's not a Zarfin either, which is interesting, but he is just able to make it go. And so the death bat is very unique in that there might be several battle wagons, these Devastator battle wagons, but yours is this mishmash of different Arkans and arcanic pieces that shouldn't work. Like, by all rights, it shouldn't be going, but it does. And it's not always the most reliable. Sometimes she needs fixing, but she's fast. And so he would turn to his commanding officer, of course, Ravenor, and say, all right, well, now we wait for the Kawar, but she's ready to go.
Say the word, Warlord, Thatch says, glancing at Ravenor. He beholds this this amalgamation of Arcan technology, you said it was?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. It's
Yeah,
it's like a battle wagon mishmashed of Arkans.
He looks at it with hungry eyes and he licks his lips, and his gaze turns northward, ever listening to the call of what is beyond.
Yeah, and Durzag says, if I could just get someone to help me load this up there, and he points to the harpoon. Essentially, what we're going to do is load it in here and then shoot it. I just need someone to help me carry it. Will someone help me carry it? It takes about 15, 20 minutes to load properly.
We can do it in 10. Let's go.
And as you say that, the clouds off the horizon break, and you see the head of the mighty Kawar emerge from the enormous roiling bleak miles in the distance. Durzag is more excited that he was right than anything else. Such an amazing creature, might be the strongest creature in Dragon Grin, and yet it wanders the wastes aimlessly for food, but I nailed it. And then Krokar says, well, you and you, and he doesn't really point at anyone in particular. I'm gonna need somebody to come here and help me get this thing. I mean, it's ready, but it's not started. I need someone to help me get this thing started.
All right, everybody, 2 positions. Go lucky with me. Let's lift this thing.
Yeah, he was already on his way over to do it before being prompted. Being the biggest amongst us, I think. Yep.
That's perfect. And then who is going to attempt to try to help Krokar start the Arkan engine of the Death Bat?
Koro moves over and he's stashing stuff away. He's got his quiver. You would see his arm, like his hands actually shaking as he's kind of just eyeing the sky, like, and he's been around the block, but this is never easy. What he's seeing here, and he says, "Okay, yes, let's get it started."
All right. And so what I'm going to need, Nate, is basically it's with advantage because Krokar is helping you, but I need a DC. I almost told you the DC. Well, I guess I will. It's a DC 14 intelligence check. If you have any sort of Tinker tools or Arkan tools proficiency, you can also use that. Basically, you're just trying to get these wires connected. You're trying to get this thing jump started. It's process.
Yeah, I rolled exactly a 14 intelligence check on my good die with that advantage. So thank you.
That's perfect. And so as it starts roaring, it roars to life. And the look on his face is, well, and so immediately he runs out after the death bat is started. And Ravenor, he comes over to him and he goes, she's just burning fuel way faster than normal. I don't know why. I'll try to figure it out, but we're going to need more fuel.
I see. Is this something that we can achieve while moving?
Yeah, but if we run out, we run out. But yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. I mean, we would have been able to get to the Bright Hold pretty easy, but now we're about to get halfway there and we're going to need to put something in this tank. I'll let you know what that is when I figure out what she's needing right now.
Well, then work hard.
That's perfect. And I will tell you right now, I do not know what fuels this thing. So if you have any ideas narratively, we can either go over that now or when it comes up. But I'm like, it's not gas and it's an Arkan. So I'm like, who knows? But we'll figure it out. Maybe it's magic. I don't know. So I'm just throwing that out there now. Think, and if you come up with a narrative reason as we go, just throw it out there and let's roll with it. But I definitely wanted to run out of gas halfway there unless you do something. All right, rad. So the final thing that occurs is you sort of this engine's roaring is, as you all without much trouble are able to load the Drake wing into this ballista. It's looks a little shoddy, but it's loaded. And the wire as well is a material called thanium, which is a very, very hard tensile metal. It's very hard. So you're in good shape there. So that's all done. But one final character pops their head out of a hatch, and it is the driver. It's Zavana. And she says, all right, y'all, we ready to leave or what?
Positions. Let's move. Sorry, you go.
Yeah, Thatch is all this time whilst everyone else is preparing. Thatch is sort of like frozen, sort of still looking at the horizon where the Kawar is, and he turns and he looks at the driver, and Gavar can see that there are tears streaming from his cheeks, and he just says, "Absolute perfection." Let us away as fast as we can. And he jumps on board.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And unless you have anything else that you'd like to do beforehand, we will fade to black and then cut to basically Death Bat, heavy metal playing, rolling down the open desert in a trail of smoke. Is there anything else you all would like to do before we cut to that scene? Beautiful. So, it's just roaring. You've got your cloud behind you. It's definitely a wide shot, just shredding up the desert, going far faster than anything else. Now, the Death Bat itself is, I'm going to just treat it like a place. So you can kind of move about it freely unless we're in initiative order. Its size is approximated. So unless it comes down to being boarded or something like that, it's pretty narrative. There's an interior. You can tell me if there's a spot in there you want. It's kind of just like, I know for sure there's a cockpit with a driver, but other than that, go crazy if you want there to be weapons or whatever. There's definitely one harpoon, but if you want to figure out other weapons or devices that would be on there, that's also fun. So yeah, as this thing moves, just consider that we're in a chase, but it's very cinematic. So there's not a lot of actual driving at this point. Just consider that the driver is taking care of things. Now, one thing that does occur to you is that if you are going north, there's definitely more chance to run into what little marrow are here. So the Lord of Ash, or the ruler of this area, is actually Siro the Stormbreather. And before you can get to Gold Rock, you would have to pass her Fortress of Ash, the Alveolus. So it's fairly easy to do if you go around it, but there are far more marrow patrols through these areas than there would be had you gone the other directions. So just bear that in mind. So as you cut through this open desert, as the Badlands around you, these red wastes just in plumes, I want to know, the last chancers, what's going through your mind? Ravenor, what are you thinking as you head toward the Brighthold?
Like a number of things, but mostly like Ravenor is like an older guy, and he's been through a lot of missions in his time with the Marrow, and now he has a sort of like calm that he's able to produce when there is danger, and it strikes people as sort of like disconnected maybe, but he like is managing his breathing and like just thinking about the task. And so he's thinking about, how do we fuel this thing? How can we make the least amount of stops to fuel this thing? If we encounter the Marrow, what is our plan going to be? He's focused on the task, and that stops him from panicking about the huge monster that's almost certainly going to kill him. So he would be like sitting in the bubble at the front with the driver, and sort of looking out and occasionally closing his eyes and focusing and thinking about what's to be done.
Yeah. What about you, Koro?
Koro is kind of spacing out, looking at the passing terrain, kind of getting lost in the feel of the land, and imagining what kind of food or water we might find if we break down, and just trying to really dig into his warden knowledge of this land, um, fearing that we could be stuck out here for a long time and
Sure.
And exposed to
Yeah.
the elements.
And anyone who's been in Uldane for any amount of time knows what are referred to as the former glories, right? Because maybe a couple hundred years ago, this was actually a sprawling metropolis, a series of beautiful cities, and it's obviously now ravaged by the Bleak and the Kawar. But these former glories, I would imagine, especially Koro would probably have that listed in several of the maps, and you'd have all these kind of things. I mean, there are things like, in fact, Nate, why don't you roll me 2d10, and I'll tell you which one you pass right now.
Got a 27.
Oh, sorry. Just give me the result of each one separate.
Okay, a 2 and a 7.
Okay. So as you're passing by, there's this well-built, expansive fortress. This, what was once fortified, was absolutely impenetrable. But now you know that it's home to Sarek cannibals. And though there are rumors that there are hidden crates of fermented food there, there are also rumors that it might not be animal flesh. And so as you look at that, you kind of make a mental note of that fortress. And if anybody has a name for that fortress, you can call it out. But that is where you kind of make a mental note of like, okay, yes, there are Sarek cannibals there, but fortification and, in a pinch, food.
Yeah, cool. And then I reach into the there's like a cabinet in the or a compartment here in the death bat, and I'm rummaging through because the sand is getting in my eyes, and I find some little goggles, and I snap them on, and I throw a pair over to Gobak too.
I love that. That's perfect. And in the chat, Keel named the fortress Hard Hearth. And so now that is a location in our Dragon Grid. And so if it comes up, then that's what's going on there. One of the things I'd like to brainstorm, because I think it would be cool to do it now, is what do we think fuels the Death Bat? Or how does its fueling work at a high level? It can be hand wavy and it can be narrative, but what do we think in terms of the resource so that I can make that challenging?
Like, it's a little metaphysical, but maybe it's like conflict fuels it, or battle fuels it, or something, right? So not like a resource, but like an experience. I don't know if that's too like.
I love it. No, I love that. No, that's actually really cool. Yeah, that's actually really cool. And so I have sort of an idea, and you guys can jump in too. Maybe there's actually a chamber that everyone has to take turns in, basically going there and just thinking about awful stuff and having anxiety and thinking about your past war wounds and all that stuff. And it's like, it literally just converts that to energy. And so everyone knows, Jake got me in the chat. Everyone knows what it means. So when Krakar said it's burning fuel twice as fast as normal, no one said it out loud, but everyone was basically like, oh God. And so that's actually what we'll do is we'll dip into, you have this mechanic sort of skulking the halls of this cramped battle wagon, and he comes upon probably, I would say, passes Koro and Thatch and Gavak, because Ravenor, you're in the front. And he basically just says, hey, I hate to ask, but I need to do some tests. Can I get somebody to sit in the the old pain brain? Whatever weird nickname they have for it.
What happened to the peasant we put it inside before? Did he perish?
We let him out like 3 days ago. You're over in Dreamland. That dude's way gone. I think we might have broke him.
Thatch is enraged by this, but he figures that this rage will be constructive. So he decides, with the escape of this peasant, this will fuel his contribution to the death bat. So, sort of rolling his shoulders, and blinking hard, he steps towards the chamber within.
That's fantastic. And I'll give you a moment to kind of think of what that looks like, or what you're, narratively describe to me the awful fuel from your anxiety-ridden, bleak brain that pumps into this thing. But for the moment, I was going to say, Gavak, I don't know what it is. I don't know exactly what you're looking at, but something reminds you of when you were wrongly accused. What reminds you of that, and what are you thinking? It's tender right now.
So we pass a stone formation which looks like a broken blade, like a shattered sword. And as our vision pans across, we see that a similar looking sword, like a shattered great sword, is strapped to his back. And for those in the know, it's got some infamy, this weapon. It was wielded by a hero during Lightfall. And Gerbok came into possession of it by defeating that hero in a duel. And after some years, the Marrow decided that him being in possession of this relic of a hero of the forces of light meant that he was a sympathizer. And so he was basically forced into exile from his home and his family. And it's small consolation that that Ravenor was involved in it, and they both sort of were forced into exile around the same time from the same event, basically the same cause, and so that keeps him in the moment for now, and he banks that just on the precipice for his turn in the rage cage.
So I love that. I want to say a couple of things. First of all, we have, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we should have 2 rerolls on the board, right? I want to give those, one to Lloyd for coming up with that crazy awesome idea of the metaphysical engine and the way that works. So Lloyd, you get a reroll. You don't have to use it for yourself. You can use it anytime. It's like inspiration, but you can point to anybody. And then it is called the Rage Cage, by the way. We decided that in the chat, which is amazing. Lloyd also said it sounds like an energy drink. So slaunch it to that, the Rage Cage. And then the second one I want to give to Keel for that amazing backstory that is just so ripe. If there are 2, let me check here. Boom. And there's 2 more, which I'm holding off for now. But Keel, you get one for that incredible story. Lloyd, you get one. And again, you can use them anywhere. You can give them to me if you want, to each other or yourself. That's beautiful.
I'm sitting in the front with the driver. Can you tell me her name again?
Yeah, absolutely. So the driver of the Death Bat is Zavanna.
Savannah, how long will it take to drive around Hard Hearth if we circle it?
Oh, I could probably do it in about hour if we circle wide and I stay safe.
And what if you don't stay safe?
15 minutes.
Perfect. We're going to need to get close. We're going to jump out, grab a Sarek for fuel, and you'll circle around. We'll jump back in.
Sounds good to me, honey. And oh, go ahead.
You go.
I was just going to say, this is probably something that only you know. Zavanna is ill with an incurable disease. So she only has a few months to live, which makes her pretty eager to take dangerous chances. So when you say to her, how long would it take if you're not careful? Because she also doesn't want others to get hurt. But when you say that to her, she's going to get pretty raucous with it. So she can actually probably do it in 15 minutes, where anyone else would definitely get killed by crashing into the side of that fortress. Yeah. So just to be clear too, you want to keep this moving, right? You want to keep the death bat just circling, and you guys are going to kind of disembark.
Totally. So like we'll leap out as it's moving, like tuck and roll, and she'll drive around. So it looks like the dragon is circling, I guess. So
beautiful.
Move towards, and then we're going to hopefully get in there, grab a Tharic, drag him into the outside, and then jump back into the death bat before she finishes.
Beautiful. Oh God, I love it. Okay, perfect. All right, yeah. And so as you're doing this as well, actually, Rob, can you roll a D12 for me and tell me what the results are?
D12 coming right up.
Yeah, man.
A 12.
12, perfect. So what happens is that the footsteps of the Kawar are like thunder. And even though he is far off in the distance, he continues to sort of skulk on the horizon. But that surge of whatever you put into the rage cage gave the death bat an extra punch. And we'll talk about what that is and what you see in a second. But it gives that extra punch, and the Drake Wing actually catches Kawar's attention. And it turns and begins to. So now you have its attention, and it is officially following the Drake Wing. But that means heavy footsteps, deafening roar. And so as you do this, it is parallel to all of you. But as the Kawar begins to come toward your direction, this enormous cliff face starts to crack and fall and crumbles into dust, just showing you how dangerous having a creature this large follow you can be. All right, so that all happens outside, and all of you who are outside would see this, that the Kawar is coming. But Rob, what was it? What was it that Thatch saw that gave such a surge to the death bat like this?
Through the echoing, roiling powers of the bleak, Thatch can once again hear its voice, hear its will. A deep, low voice echoing within his mind. You are lost, Crucian. In seeing possible outcomes and alternate futures, you render every choice you will ever make meaningless. All transgressions against the will of the bleak is futile. One last chance. In being reminded of this knowledge that everything that he ever does will be futile because it's already been done by someone else, another version of himself, he goes deep inside his mind into that rage and expels rage into the cage like never before.
And take yourself a session dice for that. Absolutely brilliant. And I like to think that when there's a surge like that, it feels like all of you bit down on metal. It's like this sort of intangible metaphysical energy. And so it's just kind of like, it just gives you the willies for a second. You're just like, ugh. Because it's strong enough to fuel, right? So it's strong enough to affect your carcasses. As you begin circling, Koro, you're pretty familiar with this place, Hard Hearth. And so you're able to, I will allow you to, if you can give me some way that you can exploit this, or some piece of information, narratively, something interesting of a way, I will let you guys have a better chance or a cooler narrative chance at scooping up a cannibal than having to get out. So what's the exploit? What do you know? No roll.
Yeah. So are there other walls? Is it a walled compound or what is it?
I imagine that it's an old Granach Thane fortress, so it's well built, and so it's eroded. So there are probably cracks in the walls and broken pieces. But at one point, this was the pinnacle of military fortresses.
Yeah. So I would say I would know which part of the structure is most likely to have this might be cruel, but we're just doing it. The elderly who have seen more, experienced some real crap, and and are weaker and less defended. And I know which part of the structure they're in, and the elders. And we're going right to that portion of the wall.
Yeah.
And we're gonna try to, crack through it or or yeah, something.
No, that's amazing. And absolutely. So yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow you guys to essentially, instead of having to stop or have someone circle and disembark, I will let you get creative with that section. Now, of everyone in this Zoom, Lloyd, I think you're really good at that sort of like thought process of like what is efficient and interesting. So I imagine that these Sarek cannibals they have some sort of hierarchy. So I don't know, are they elderly prisoners that are going to be eaten, or are these elderly Sarek, or like what are you imagining? You got a vibe on that?
I think they don't really age, do they, Sarek?
So
So it makes
yeah.
more sense to me that they are captives to be eaten.
Yep.
And they keep them in this part of the wall because it's like the least impressive or nice part of the town or whatever.
Yep.
That makes more sense to me, I think.
I love that. And I kind of like, if you guys are cool with it, I like the idea that just because they're cannibals doesn't mean that they're like weird, bleedy mouth savages. Like, I actually like the fact that maybe that description you just gave me is like, maybe they're into like battered finery. So like they go off scavenging nice things. So it looks like this sort of twisted, nice place, like where a mishmash of different things that were once glorious and beautiful. And so, yeah, absolutely. So you gentlemen formulate the plan, and then I'll formulate the challenges. So how are you going to take these elderly captives from this fortress?
There's a weak point in the structure of the wall that's been cracked for thousands of years, and there's like this one support beam that's been built since, like I think it would be clear that if we like smash that out, there will be a collapse and it will cause lots of chaos. And so if we can like hit that hard enough and fast enough, there'll be a lot of chaos, and we can grab some people, and also might allow those who are captured to be freed.
What if we I don't know if this would be possible. What if we use the harpoon? And the challenge will be also getting it wrapped back up and onto the vehicle after it's now probably dragging behind the vehicle after having smashed the wall.
Super into that.
Great. Much better than smashing our car into the wall, I think.
Well, and I was going to have the driver tell you that she was going to have to drive through the compound. Like she couldn't stop. So she was going to have to do the, which would have been fine as well.
With the Drake wing like darting about up above like, as the Thanium cord gets like twanged. Yeah.
Totally that. So excellent. So you're going to use the harpoon. Who's shooting the harpoon? So as you begin to circle, and they really don't have much in the way of defenses, but there are some. There are probably some scouts and things like that. But people usually leave them alone. You know, their fortress is usually their resource, right? So actually, that's kind of thin. No, I want to make it so they're deadly and dangerous, and they're called roamers. And as you get closer, it's actually been rumored that they stole a Devastator and have been doing weird stuff to it. Because that's better. I was going in a weak direction there, and I just decided that was lame. So that's better. So they stole a Devastator, and they're doing weird stuff with it. So as you circle, you're getting closer. I will leave it up to you all to tell me exactly what happens. Just go for it. Tell me what you're doing, and if at any point you need to roll or if I need to do a check, I'll interject. But if not, just tell me an awesome story of how you grab these people.
They will rue the day they stole technology that does not belong in their hands. Warden, do you believe that you are capable enough to make this shot, to bring this gibbering Sarek into our midst?
I've been practicing. It doesn't look too hard. Let's give it a whirl. So I'll be making the shot, I guess, with that. And then yeah, I guess I would turn to the others and I would say, as soon as the shot flies, we are following it. Just try to stay out of the way of the harpoon after it's wrenched and dragged back behind the death bat.
I like to imagine Govok and Koro have been practicing with the harpoon together. And Govok just says, remember, it pulls to the left. Sort of clearly stroppy that he didn't get chosen to take the shot. He just hefts this huge, heavy crossbow that he carries and heads off with the others.
Ravener will be on mosquito duty, which is what they sort of playfully call the job of smashing anything that grabs onto the death bat and like kicking it off so that it doesn't get inside. And so he'll like make his way to the top and like he'll attach a little cord to like his armor and then get his sword ready to just basically baseball swing anyone who tries to like climb on top.
I love it. I love it so much. So, Nate, the way that I was handling the death bat, I actually was using some of the super rad stuff from the Descent. I don't know why I said it like that. Descent to Avernus, I believe is what it's called. The Infernal Machines, and they have some like stat blocks and things like that. So, essentially, what I was going to let you do is just roll as an attack roll with the harpoon. And so why don't you tell me what you roll, and then I'll tell you all the stuff that you can add and all that good stuff.
My longbow has a +8 and I rolled a 13, so that would be a 21 if I'm using that same attack bonus.
Yeah, that works for me. And so what I'm going to do is kind of just apply that to the weapons. So yep. So that would be amazing because it has a +5 to hit in a range of 120 feet, and you can hit one target. So basically, you can just tell me exactly what you hit because you nail the roll. So why don't you narrate to me what that looks like?
Yeah. So there's just a spot. It's real low, and I imagine it's just this little like bit of broken brick or whatever, this mud brick or whatever it's made out of. And I aimed the harpoon. I remember Govok's advice to aim a little bit to the left right at the last minute as I'm just loosing this thing, and it flies and it hits the ground right into it, right in that spot, and kind of skids into it, and it actually goes like top and smashes in a big crack into this wall, and the bottom is now wide enough for someone to crawl through. And Coral leads the way in terms of following this thing. He just leaps his aging body from this and launches himself after the harpoon, tucking at the last minute and just coming up right by the wall.
Does anyone follow?
If Govok doesn't follow, then Ravener will.
Sorry, Govok certainly will. Yep, he'll leap just half a second after Koro, and he will actually not be so hurt from the fall because his leathered bat-like wings sort of unfurl as he's leaping in the air, and they glide him down, and he sort of lands with a heavy boots next to Koro, who's on the ground clutching his leg, and the wings just sort of furl back around him, and he hefts the cross. He holds the heavy crossbow down. It's not currently loaded, with the handle down for Koro to grab so he can heft him up off the ground.
And in this area, as it breaks through, as you like you say, as you sort of like land like that, the dust begins to settle and clear, and that hole that you've punched, you are right on the mark. And so this is exactly where it is. It's sort of if it was anything at one point, it was probably somewhere where they just maybe kept animals or things like that. It's very dingy. The floor isn't even stone, and there are just people in there, just chained up, bound up, those kinds of things. And they sort of look as the sunlight pierces their eyes, and they're kind of squinting, and they're looking, and there are people of all kinds that have had the misfortune of either being sold to these cannibals from the borders of Sphere. They're all over Dragon Grin, somehow have gotten here. So what are you looking for particularly? Like, what are you looking to take? There's some options here.
I feel like after Gavox helped Koro back up and sees these captives just sort of peering through and squinting, he would just, after a couple of moments, just say, "Out, go!" And as they start sort of tentatively streaming out, if they would, he would just be looking at them and assessing them to appraise which one he's going to grab and take back to the death bat.
Sure.
And he would look for probably one that's seems to be the most sprightly, I suppose, the most, still has the most vitality left from these horrible conditions.
Sure. And you do find one. And in fact, this is something that you have to decide, but there's someone who has a tattoo that you recognize. This is definitely someone from Lightfall. And I'll let you decide who that is or why, but they have a tattoo that you absolutely recognize, probably like on the neck, somewhere very easy and visible, somewhere that is clearly a sign of rebellion. They did not put a tattoo in a place that is hidden. They put it on their neck. So who is this person, and do you take them or not?
Just grabbing up some names here. Let's go to the Crucian names.
Yeah, and you don't have to start with the name if you don't have that like off the dome, but sure. Just like the general idea of like, how do you know them?
Sure.
And if you want, I can also throw out some names.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Okay, cool. So you come up with the concept, and I'll throw out a name.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So let's say that the tattoo is even more prominent than that. It's like some facial tattoos across their chin and their cheeks.
Yeah.
And that marks them as a very well-renowned hero from Lightfall. And Gavok actually looks over to Koro and sort of does a double take between this prisoner. So as they're sort of streaming out and this prisoner sort of starts emerging, he puts a hand on the chest to sort of stop him and pull him aside. And he looks between him and Koro like, is this really who I think it is?
Yeah.
And the what he's renowned for is during Lightfall, holding against a siege of the Dismembered Legion or whatever they were called during Lightfall.
Sure.
Like kind of a 300 kind of moment, right? Like held against insurmountable odds for way longer than they should have.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, so there's also a cool sort of rivalry between the Granach Thane and the Talisar. So I imagine this was some sort of Talisar who wasn't necessarily affiliated with the Talis elves and what they were doing, but they would have been someone who definitely held their own, slew a bunch, like you say, and probably killed a hefty handful of Granok Thane, because during Lightfall, many of the Granok Thane were mercenaries for the bad guys at the time. So this person's probably not only just known for doing what you said, but known for killing some really famous Granok Thane warriors.
And is...
I was going to give you a name too whenever you want it.
Yeah, please, yeah.
So we're going to say it's Andromus Helos. I'm going to write that down because someone will ask me later what it is. And I'm going to change Helos because it sounds a little too much like hello. So I'm going to make it Andromus Caius. Give him 2 first names.
And so as these sort of memories of Andromus Caius and the deeds and the feats and the atrocities to the Granok Thane people, at least, that he's committed in the name of the light.
Right.
He kind of is looking between Koro and Andromus, just doing that double take, like, do I really have this opportunity right now? Yeah. And he says to him, how'd you like to do one more service for the light? And just grabs him, I guess strong arms him, right? Like puts him in
sure
that half Nelson, and maybe chucks his heavy crossbow over to Koro so that he can subdue this relatively large Andromus Caius, and looks around as some more of the captives are still sort of tentatively streaming out. Looks around to see the position of the death bat, if it's managed to circle back yet. Very aware that the Kawar is closing in.
Yeah, and the death bat is circling. It's just been long enough to where you can see its smoke trail. And I think I'll use this as the perfect opportunity to say that we have just passed $12,000 for Jasper's game day. Awesome. Well done, everybody. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And we have another domain die, which I am going to give to Nate for that incredible, inventive, amazing narrative. I will likely keep the others for myself. Thank you. Maybe I'll give one to the Kawar, who's very hungry. But I just wanted to say that. Thank you all. And the death bat is circling. And what does it look like as one enormous Festier and one wiry, scrappy, elderly human try to do a boxcar hobo situation on an arcanic death machine?
I think that Ravenor is standing at the top, and like every time the Kawar steps, there's like the deathbat like bounces briefly up, and he has to like grab onto something. And every time he does, they're like Sarek on the walls looking down and like throwing spears and stuff, and they like bounce, and one of them like flings himself splat onto the side and like is trying to like he's like on the circle, the cockpit, and he's like got a little knife and he's trying to bash in there, and Ravenor has to like run up and like kick him so he falls off, and then splat is run over by the death bat, and he's wondering where the hell Thatch is and what the hell he's doing when there's all this stuff going on, but that's another story.
Thatcher stood upon the top of the death bat, also attached with one of these cords, watching his War Master do most of the work, taking out these would-be boarders. He's wildly yelling in the direction of his comrades who are dragging this veteran back to the death bat. Until there's a target in front of him, he can't really blast anyone. So instead, he will cast Thaumaturgy, making his voice deep and loud. And he yells with a booming voice, "Back! Back, you terrible beasts!" At those who would try and pursue his friends back to the death bat, to try and intimidate them, basically.
Yeah, and in almost as in a call and response, there's a terrifying, deafening roar from the Kawar, which goes beyond noise. It is a feeling of loudness that rumbles and shakes your entire chest. It's just like, it sounds like the world is cracking. And it was in this sort of response to your like back monsters. You hear this, and the entire death bat shakes. And so, you two are able to get back onto the death bat, and things are moving along. There is still one sort of hanger on, Lloyd, this one Sarek cannibal who's just sort of like, I don't even know what she thinks she's trying to do. Is she trying to leave, stay alive? It's probably just survival at this point. So what do you do?
Ravenor will like walk over there, and he's like grabbing onto like bits and pieces. I imagine the top of the death bat is just like spikes and poles and random things all over the place that are like somehow meant to keep it going. And so he's like a monkey, like swinging between them, like he knows it so well. And then like swings his way towards this Sarek and thinks, more fuel, I guess, and will reach down with one hand and like grab the top of her skull and try and pull her up, and then throw her like down into the death bat.
Oh, and it works. And I would imagine that you just hear like, company, more company. Okay. Yes. Very good. Very good. Who's hungry?
Get her into the rage cage. He says, like another one like is climbing on. He's like, poof, smacking them away.
That's amazing. Yeah, and so in the tumultuous raid of the fort there, something did happen, which is, whoa, I'm going to stop that narration. We just got another $350 donation. My hat's off to you. This is awesome. This is absolutely amazing. That's another 7 domain dice. I am going to have to cast an enormous spell. The Kawar might have to attack something. That is enormous. Holy cow. And you get a domain dice. And you get a domain dice. Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. Thank you. Thank you all. Whew. So, the death bat trudges on. You're halfway or a little further, right? So you're headed towards the Brighthold. But the issue becomes that as this has been a successful raid for fuel, and of course, that's taken care of, the Drakewing has become a bit twisted. And so now it's sort of stuttering and flopping. And while it's still holding itself in the air, it doesn't look like food or like it's flying anymore. Occasionally, it just sort of begins to fall and then free falls, twists, and it's getting worse and worse. And you hear, someone's going to have to probably climb it. Won't be me.
Yeah,
Can't
there's
be
a
me.
moment where no one wants to do it. Like that's
Soft
insane.
hands. Soft hands.
I'm too old
Since
for
no
this
one
crap.
No one is forthcoming. Ravenor will do it, and so he'll like and begin moving towards the back, I guess, where the harpoon is, and try and climb it.
Yeah. So specifically, what Ravenor is going to have to do now is essentially rope climb this Thanium string that's holding the Drakewing, that is all twisted and combobulated and all that kind of stuff. And so the this might actually, how's your climbing? Because you might need some domain dice for this, I think.
It's very possible. I mean, it depends on what it is. I think athletics maybe, but he's like not bad at it. But
yeah.
I think climbing a steel rope that's like moving is going to be difficult.
No, absolutely. And there's definitely smoke in the distance that you didn't recognize before. This smoke is black, purple, maybe it's green. It's strangely colored, and it's coming fast in a wave like clouds. It's not the bleak. You know the bleak well. And it's not the desert sands of Uldane. You know that very well. This is something else. And so you can see that. So what you're going to have to do is climb to the very, very top. And you're going to have to untangle the very top of the Drake wing and essentially not let it fly off the Thanium rope. So it's going to be pretty crazy. Who is going to do what?
I'm going to climb it.
Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is essentially, we'll say that it's, how long do you think this thing is? 50 feet?
It'd be longer, right? Like if it's
100, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I would think it'd have to be, yeah, because it has to be in the air, high, super high in the air.
right, because
So-
it has like a 50-foot reach. So if it's that close, it's going to get us.
It's
right?
going to
'Cause
get
it's
it. So yeah,
enormous.
so like maybe like 100 feet, 125 feet, something like that,
Okay.
right? And so maybe we'll say that it's 100 feet, but maybe there's a the ability to let it out more if you needed to, right? So you could reel it in or let it out kind of thing. But right now it's at least a good 100 feet. And it's twisted. So if you tried to reel it in, you're toast. There's no way. The whole thing is beautiful. So the climbing is going to be actually, what we'll do is we'll actually take a quick break. We're about at the middle point. So we'll do a very, very quick break. We'll do, I'll throw it back to Jake. Thank you so much for watching. Don't go anywhere. We're about to climb this thing and we still have the final act that we need to pay off all of these big plot threads that we've laid out there. So we'll do a quick, don't go anywhere, but we're going to do a quick break. Thank you all. Amazing that we've raised so much so far. We'll do a quick break. Everybody grab your drinks, refill your drinks. We'll be right back. The appearance of the Drake wing flying behind you is one thing. It's just become part of the background, part of the scenery. But to actually consider and truly attempt to climb it, it becomes less of background scenery and more of a treacherous, longer than you can imagine sort of position in place in Dragongrin. So just talk me through, Lloyd, what exactly are you going to do to even try to get on this thing? Like, it's coming out of the harpoon. So like, you're not a small dude.
No, I'm not wearing armor. It's going to be incredibly difficult. But we have to do it or we will definitely get eaten. And so I'm going to simply attempt it. I'm going to like make sure my gloves are on tight and put my hands on and like put my legs, wrap around and just try and go up backwards, I guess.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens. I'm going to try.
No, that's perfect. All right. So,
Wait, can't Govok fly?
oh yeah.
Can
Yes, he can. He can glide, and he can once per wings. Once
Yeah,
per rest can gain a fly speed of 30 feet for 10 minutes. So yeah, that's what I was saying in the side chat. Yeah, he could maybe.
Might be better than me trying to climb this rope.
That's
If
good
you'd
thinking.
fly.
That's good thinking. If you want to go that route, it's totally up to you. I mean,
Yeah, Govok would happily. Oh well, would certainly be willing to do
Okay,
what
cool.
needs to be done. Yeah.
so what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow you to, because it's a climb speed of like, not climb, a flight speed of 30 feet, right? And we talked about this thing being like 100 feet. So that's not a big deal. And you have it for, you say a minute. Is that correct?
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay,
yeah.
gotcha. I was like, did we really make it that? I was like, wow, we're mean. No. So for 10 minutes. So I would say that reasonably, without pressure, you can do that in 10 minutes. But here's the thing. The speed at which you're going to have to fly is not normal, right? So what I'm saying is the death bat's going super, super fast. So I am going to let you do this, but it's going to cost you something, right? Probably some sort of exhaustion level is what I'm thinking, but we'll see. Let's see how it goes. So describe to me how you're going to fly up there and what method you're going to use to untwist the Drake wing. There is a risk that it will become detached. I'm letting you know that.
Understood. Copy that. So Govok, his position atop the death bat is usually there's a chain that's on one of like the poles up there, one of the horizontal poles, and it's a short chain, and he chains himself on there. And while someone else is manning the harpoon, usually Koro, he's there chained in with his heavy crossbow, providing sort of artillery fire to whatever's going on. This is a non-standard situation, very much. And so he would sort of unchain himself and strap his crossbow. I imagine he's got like a little thing that he can strap his crossbow to his back.
Yeah.
And he sort of, like Ravenor did before, sort of pulls himself through along the top, all the things, the spikes sticking out of the top of the death bat, and sort of crouches facing the way we're going, with the wind just rushing past him as he's sort of holding on to the bar at the front, and sort of crouches down and lets his wings unfurl, and they sort of flap for a moment in the wind, and then they sort of go rigid, and he just sort of lets go and just like flies upward, like when you let go of something, like a piece of paper when you're going at speed. He just gets taken, and then if they look around, they see that he sort of starts controlling and flying and trying to catch up to the tangled Drake wing up there. And so maybe that might be my first check, trying to catch it and grab onto it, and then he's going to have to try and untangle it from there.
So we'll do 2 in a row. The first is a Constitution save, because this is very high speed. This is like trying to jump from a moving car, but you just have flight, right? So the first is give me a con save.
Oof, that's a 10 total.
You do not make it. So would you like to use a domain die?
Yes. Let's
okay.
do it. I've got one here. Yeah.
You may.
All right.
Come on.
Ooh, that's more like it. That's a 14 total.
Got it. That is exactly the number. So right now, the DC of everything you're trying to do is roughly a 14. Something might be harder, some things might be tougher, but roughly we're at a 14. So you make it. So you steel yourself against the wind, you catch your breath, and now you're looking at this tangled wire that is thanium, this impervious metal that is now knotted. So what are you going to do? You have to do 2 things here. You need to, well, I'm not going to tell you what you need to do, but rather the challenges you face are, there's a knot in the thanium cord, and it looks as though the Drake wing is becoming disattached to the sort of hook or clasp that's on it because of the pressure and stress that it's been under.
So Govok will, he's grabbed onto the thanium cord to try and make sure he can keep up with the speed that this thing's going. So it's been flapping around, and now he's sort of stabilized it a little with his weight, but they're still, shifting around up there. And he's looking at this thing. And what is the Drake wing made from? Is it very sturdy?
It is, yeah. So it's like a mishmash of primordial pieces. So like the leather is like primordial hide, it's primordial bone, other pieces of thanium framing. So it's pretty sturdy, and it's lightweight, but it's definitely can take a beating.
Perfect. Yeah. So it's more the connection, like the way.
Right, yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what's
okay.
Because that was the most slapdash part of the whole thing.
Yeah. So, okay. And just one last question. Size-wise, how much bigger than Govok is the Drake wing?
I imagine it as being like pretty sprawling. So about 20 feet wide and like 10 feet long is kind of what I was thinking-ish in terms of wingspan. Like that sort of, so it looks like an actual dragon when it's in the air. big enough to
Okay.
catch Kawar's eye, not like a bird. You know, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, awesome. So here's what Gavok will do. He will use the little like carabiner at his waist that he uses to chain himself onto the top of the death bat. He'll use that to strap himself to the Drake wing and hold on to the cord to make sure, because it's either that or cut it loose or try and retie it, but it's not going to be as aerodynamic and it's not going to work. So he's going to stay up there.
As Lloyd says. So that's amazing. So we'll do a sort of classic skill challenge situation here. The DC is 14. You can't use any like 3 skills in a row, but you know, so I'll let you start with whatever you want, but you need to get 3 successes before you get 5 failures. Right. So domain dice are on the table, baby. People are paying for them. So you got the pool. I think we have 9 left. So 3 of them belong to others. So you have 6 at your disposal. I'll give you 3 to use.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, let's do it. So first off, it'll be acrobatics as Gavok tries to position himself in the air at high speed and connect himself onto the thing.
Love it.
Oof, that is a 12 total.
All right, so first failure.
All right, what do you reckon? Should we? Is this critical enough?
Now
guys?
is the time.
I'll leave it to you
now,
guys.
I was gonna say it's totally your call, and I'll leave it up to the rest of the guys. But
all right, I've got 3. Let's see how many we can get, and then if we end up with a bunch of failures at the end, then we do. So that was actually lower. So that's 1 failure and one domain die used.
Okay.
And so, so maybe it's tangled around now, and he's kind of between the cord, and he's holding on to the thing, and it's like he's got 1 hand on each now, something like that.
Yep.
And so now he's going to have to try and pull it down and pull things back into position. So it'll be athletics this time.
Love it.
All right. Hey, there we go. That's a 23.
Perfect. So you have your 1 success. So you're able to wrench that with your sheer strength, even against the wind at high speeds. You're able to, by sheer force of will.
And now I think it's some fine details. So he's going to use perception to get it all sort of connected properly with the, you know how the wind, when it's high winds in your face and it just blurs your eyes and everything.
Yes.
So it'll be going through that.
Love it.
Oh yeah. All right. That's a 21.
Oh yeah. So you hit. So that's another success. So what do you, when you are perceiving that, what do you perceive? You are successful. So what is that? What do you see? How does it work?
So I imagine it's like he's trying to connect his little carabiner to the Drake Wings connection that it has. And I feel like it's at first because it's him like fighting through and seeing through this like watery eyes, blurry vision. So at first he is about to connect it, or tries maybe connecting it to the wrong thing briefly, and then he sees the right connection, and maybe he at first actually like connects it to his crossbow, like how it comes around and it's not at his side there, and just before he lets go he realizes and like, no, okay, and connects it into the actual right place.
That's perfect. Oh, that would have been the worst.
Just the Drake Wings goes off with his crossbow.
Off, and your crossbow, and you're just holding the rope, and people look up like, what? No, that is absolutely beautiful. So okay, so what's next? What are you going to do to try to bring it home?
All right, this is where we start getting some slim pickings sometimes in these skill challenges when you min-max. I think I'll say, I think sleight of hand doesn't make sense because that's kind of what I just described for perception, really. Sleight of hand or stealth are my next 2 best ones. Any suggestions how that fits? Or otherwise, what have we got?
If you have sleight of hand, I'd say give it a go.
Yeah, if you
I would allow that.
Tim.
If you
Yeah.
haven't
Yeah,
used it.
especially
So, okay, maybe that's to deal with the cord now.
that's a great way to
Yeah.
think of it.
Like,
Sort of
wrap
like
that around my arm, like with one hand. Yeah. All right.
right,
Let's
like
see how this
essentially at
goes.
high speeds, it's a finesse move because the tensile nature of the rope, it's more about positioning than it is about strength.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was a 4 on the die. So that's a 7 total, and I'm going to use another domain die if I may.
You may.
Oh, that's a nat 20.
Beautiful. Okay. So you are able to successfully not only untangle the Drake wing, but you do not suffer any of the exhaustion effects that we talked about before. So your ability to let the physics do the work is what's helping you here. You're not having to hold and shepherd this thing tirelessly using your core and your arms and your shoulders and your wings. You're able to sort of hold on. And it's like if you have a weight and a string that's tangled, if you sort of let it hang and it's sort of, that's what begins to happen. And the Drake wing untangles itself because of how you've positioned it. And now it's flying freely. And you have successfully kept the Drake wing attached to the death bat at high speeds. Well done. Well done.
Down below, Ravenor is like still battering people off the side of the death bat, and like at one stage he like throws one of the sticks we use like over to Thatch, who like picked it up and smashes somebody else, and there's like this intricate ballet of like battering Sarek away from the death bat as we're like non-stop going, looking up constantly, being like, what is taking him so long?
Yeah, and as you continue, like you say, this sort of they must have crawled on like ants. So when you hit, they just scattered and just clung on. And as you say this, you're like, what's taking so long? Thatch gets a strange vision. And this vision is of the fortress, clearly. And you could see it in your mind's eye. And it is a Zarfin. As you know, these people of Dragongrin who are skilled and gifted to work with Archons. And you can see this Zarfin in the fortress just chained up, all cuts and bruises and things like that. And you can see it, this Zarfin, working on this strange blur, but it's just like tirelessly working on this thing. And it looks to you as though he or she can see you and mouths the word, help, they're coming. And with that, you immediately see that plume of smoke on the horizon are these strange, smaller vehicles that are as fast or faster than the death bat. And there are these Sarek cannibals on the backs of them. They're essentially like, imagine just like these smaller versions of like bipedal, like almost like motorcycle, sort of like just kind of tearing it up. And the, as everyone kind of notices and sees and starts looking and peering, you see that the driver turns to you and says, well, that's what happened to the other Devastator. And you can see that they probably have this Zarfin chained up, making him or her work on these like weird arcanic, like motorcycles, essentially. So closing in on you is now these cannibals who also have crossbows, harpoons, that sort of thing. And so why don't you go ahead and roll me initiative? Let me know what you get. Thank you all for tuning in as we roll initiative. We are definitely entering combat, and this has just been absolutely amazing with the donations. It has been humbling, and this has been so much fun and for an awesome cause. Right. So we have, all right, beautiful. So let's see. Wow, we have another 3 domain dice. I think I'm going to give a lot of these domain dice to the cannibals that I'm going to call the roamers. the Sarek roamers. So we'll call them the roamers. There are 3 bikes, each with 2 passengers. So there's like a front and a backseat kind of thing, where looks like there's sort of like a driver and a shooter situation is what's going on. All right. So just typing up thank you, Lloyd. Lloyd just typed the initiative in the chat. All right. So first up is Koro.
So Koro has been occupied with trying to keep these cannibals off, and or maybe prisoners, captives. But anyway, he's been using kind of the butt of his short sword to like smash little fingers he sees coming up onto the death bat. And but immediately upon kind of hearing the roar of these engines getting closer, and seeing the cloud of smoke appear not as the smoke after all, or dust after all, quickly pulls out his longbow, and I'm just going to try to take a shot. Are they even within range yet, or?
Yeah, they're fast. They're actually probably a little faster than the death bat, which is scary, but yep.
All right. So I'm kind of clinging to the side, using my weight as best I can to stay to the center of the death bat as I fire my short bow at the closest one.
Yep, absolutely.
And that is going to be a miss.
Okay, well, so I'll tell you 2 things. 1, you can use a domain die for sure. And then 2, you can choose to either hit the rider or the vehicle. And that's up to you. So like if you want to narratively, I think it's cool. I'm not going to make you kill all their hit points, but if you can narratively get them to a certain level of damage, I'll essentially let you guys take kill shots on the vehicles, because it would be fun to watch them crash in the dust and blow up. Like, so rule of cool there. So it's up to you. Are you aiming for the vehicle or the rider?
I would like to aim for the vehicle. I think that's pretty awesome. So
cool.
I also realize I have archery, so I forgot I have a +8. So I shouldn't assume that an 11 misses.
Sure. So as of right now, if you you are looking, if you're looking for the bike, the AC is pretty easy to hit. It's a 14 for the bike.
Okay.
Because it's pretty big. So you know.
So we can't start it off like this. We got to start it off a little stronger. So I'm going to use a domain die if that's okay.
Yeah, I think you need to.
We got to start it with a bang here. Oh god. Well, that's going to be a not much better. Yeah, I still miss.
Okay, so
13.
Here's what I'll do. I will let you use 2 domain dice if you want to re-roll it again, but it's going to cost you 2 more.
Nope, I'm just not going to do it. We're just gonna roll with it. I got some sand in my eyes, and the arrow just kind of skids right in front of the bike and makes it swerve a little bit, but does not hit.
I love it. And the Kawar is just getting closer and closer through all of this. And off in the distance to the west, you can see Alveolus, the Sorose fortress, but it's far enough away that hopefully you won't catch the ire of any marrow, but it's definitely this huge arachnid-looking structure imposing on the landscape. But you know that means that you're extremely close to the Brighthold, the city entrenched in the mountains, nestled in the Everbleak. And so that would be something that definitely you would know, Nate, because you're very familiar with the terrain. So even as you miss in your periphery, you know all those details.
Sweet.
Killer. That is now, it is the bike's turn. So we'll call them the roamers. And so I think that one of the roamers is actually going to take a shot at you, Nate, because you just shot at it. You know what I'm going to do? It's going to shoot the passenger on the back of the bike is going to try to shoot its harpoon at you. So if that hits, I'm going to let it like kind of grapple you and pull you off the death bat. So let's see what happened. Ooh, that's a 19.
That is definitely a hit.
I assume that hits, right? Okay, cool. So what I'll do is I'm going to just make it so it hits you, but I'll give you a dex save or a strength save, whatever's better for you, to not let it sort of make purchase into your flesh and hook you. Like it hits you, but maybe it's, what do you got?
I rolled a 15.
Okay, you just make it. So
Okay.
you are not pulled from. So the harpoon is, though, I'll say, like, probably in your leg.
Yep.
But it is their wire breaks is what I would imagine happens there. So it's just they don't have the thanium that you all do.
Yeah, so I wince and like just this wave of pain falls over me as I kind of slunk to the side of the death bat even closer.
Yeah, and you take a pretty hefty hit from that. That's going to be 10 damage.
All right.
All right, so we got 2 more bikes. They're actually going to try to attempt. I think one of them is going to try to hit the Drake wing. They don't even know what it is, but it seems important to you, right? And so I've given it a basic sort of like AC of essentially like a griffin. I'm kind of using a stat block of a griffin in terms of like it's got an AC of 12 and hit points. Well, it doesn't matter to you. Just and that's a miss, but I'm going to use a domain die.
I was going to say, if it misses that, does it hit me?
Yeah, actually, so that's actually a good point. So why don't you give me a dex save? Because maybe it hits both.
Oh, yeah.
Because that second one definitely hits.
That is only a 12 on the dex save.
Okay, so you actually don't make your dex save. So give me either a second, either dex or strength save, or they can start pulling you with a grapple check.
Ooh. All right.
Whatever's higher for you.
Yeah, strength is slightly higher. So that's a 17 on the strength save.
All right. So you are able to pull back and snap the wire. But as I say with Nate, so now the harpoon is in you and the Drake wing. So it hits both of you. And you take 12 damage. Yep. And so does the Drake wing, takes 12 damage as well. So like there's a puncture hole in the wing. And also for anyone watching, Jake is about to raffle off the AbTab 5-book digital bundle. If you like this sort of stuff, you like Dragon Grin, we have other books that are similar in this sort of narrative, very rules, not cohesive, rules collaborative. We'll call it this rules collaborative play style. If you like that, please be around for the raffle he's about to do. But yeah, so there's one more bike that has an opportunity to go. And I think, I'm trying to think of anyway. So remind me, is Ravenor still beating Sarikoff? Are you a target?
Yes.
All right.
Sure. He's on the top of the roof.
Harpoons, baby. Okay, so that is a 16 on the die.
That just hits.
That just hits. All right, so same thing. Roll me either a strength or dex save, or this thing has an opportunity to grapple you, the harpoon.
11 plus 5 is 16 on a strength save.
You hit. So tell me what it looks like as you are hit with this harpoon, but it doesn't somehow pull you off.
Yeah, it's like a grazing strike. Sails past his shoulder and leaves like a deep cut. Like it's sheared some of the metal away. And he like winces and like wipes at it. But thankfully it didn't pierce into him.
Yeah, and it actually scraped probably some sort of sinew or some sort of, something there. So it does wound you fairly badly. You take 11 damage, but it is definitely not going to pull you off there. All right, Thatch, you're up.
Thatch is striding along the top of the death bat, his safety cord dragging across the steel pipe that runs along its length, and he's looking down at those that are chasing them in these contraptions, and he closes his eyes and he says, "I am its will." And the bleak takes presence within his mind for a moment, and with Uduga sister, he lets burst with a fourth what was it called? Sorry, let's just see. It's called, I know my spells, promise. Bleak Surge. He casts Bleak Surge, firing a blast of continual raw energy at the target. So let's see if he hits. First of all, he's got to make a ranged attack. Oh, that's a 21.
Nice. Yeah, that absolutely hits.
So that's targeting the bike thing, and that will do 11 points of bleak damage to it.
Oh, that's perfect. And so the bike, I imagine you hit its tire and sort of make it so it has to sort of. So I'm going to actually make the passenger, do the old deck save as well, or be thrown. Oh, nope. So a sorry cannibal, the old Wilhelm scream situation, just in the trail of plumes of bleak that you have cast, its own noxious smoke and the dirt being kicked up from the sands of Uldane. So it flies off and you actually hurt the bike. Or killer. Is there anything else that you'd like to do?
He just screams loudly and boisterously into the air as he watches some of their foes be splattered upon the wastes.
I love it. And as you scream, Ravenor, you take hold of the situation.
Yeah, there's like these bikes all around, so he's gonna like bite at his finger and pull his glove off, and then bite between his thumb and his index finger to draw some blood, and he'll whisper quite quietly, "For the Sovereign," and then he'll like point at one of them and cast Guiding Bolt at one of the bikes.
For anyone watching who isn't familiar with Dragongrin, the Sovereign is the fancy name of the big bad, the Dismembered Lord. So that is actually a big sort of reveal that he just whispered, like, for the bad guy.
That's where he gets
Love
his
it.
power from. It's going to be a 19.
Love it. All right, that absolutely hits.
All right, so Guiding Bolt. It's going to be 8. It's going to be 12 points of radiant damage, and the next attack against that bike has advantage.
Oh, sick. Okay, killer. So that'll probably be the leader of the pack, the one that sort of seems to have the most frills. Like if this was Mad Max, this one would have the green mohawk,
Right.
like that kind of thing, right? So, and yeah, the bike takes a walloping hit, just, and everyone feels cold for just half a second for a place so hot as Uldane. Is there anything else you'd like to do on your turn?
No, that's it. I think he'll probably like end up swinging from a few more poles and like coming closer to the front of the death bat, but that's it.
Totally. Yep. Love it. All right. Gavok.
Gavok wants to deal with this harpoon skewering him and the Drakewing. So their cord snapped and he managed to not get grappled, but he wants to pull it out because he figures that will interfere. A hole remaining in the Drakewing's wing will interfere less than a harpoon hanging off it,
Yeah, absolutely.
But to do so, he's got to pull it out of himself as well. So
unfortunately, yes.
So what shall I do for that?
I feel like they're serrated and gnarly and awful. And so I think it'll just be straight damage. So I would imagine that I will let you roll a d6 to see how much damage it takes and how lucky you are. Just kind of, I think it's going to do damage no matter what. There's no roll that's going to make it not hurt.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. All right, here we go. 4 damage.
All right, so just mark that on your sheet.
Rusty. I have resistance to tetanus damage.
Yeah, we get all our Uldanian shots here. We're very serious about that in the Last Chancers. There's so much rust in here.
Part of the contract, we
Exactly.
had to show our immunizations for.
Yeah, or else we won't cover you. I mean, we're not going to cover that. I'm not covering your next of kin because you die of tetanus walking around the deathbed. Oh, that's perfect. Oh God. Oh, excellent. And so you've able to, and I'll allow you to do that essentially as a bonus action. So you can now take a full turn.
Okay, great. So yeah, having extracted the harpoon and dropping it down, it would then, he's got one hand tangled around, tangled around the cord, holding him in place. And then I think we established it's then him and then the Drakewing on top.
That's
of
how
him,
I was
the way that he
imagining
had to
it,
do
like-
it. Yeah, he's got like a clip on the front, on his front and back, and he's kind
Exactly.
of got it on his back clip. Yeah, and so what he wants to try and do is, well, what he tries to do is reach around without like throwing himself off balance and just spinning down into a mountain, grab his crossbow with one hand. That is, if you'll allow it, preloaded.
Yeah, that's fine. Honestly, or I'll let you, like, narratively speaking, I'll even let you load it for a moment. Like,
he's got the crossbow expert feat, so he does ignore the reload property. So
there you go.
He's
Now
only
it's
got
even
one hand, but yeah, still, yeah,
better, even better. Now it's not a hand wave; it's like a rules, reason.
Perfect. And then it's a matter of if that's just his interaction, then you allow him to take an action as well. Then you'll
absolutely, yeah. I'll let
shot.
you move and attack as normal. Like all that stuff is basically bonus and interaction.
Perfect. Cool. So okay, even with move, then even though tethered as he is with the Drake wing on top, I think he's still, because he's got his wings out and he's flying and gliding, he has some sort of control. So he'll sort of move to position himself, and then fire a bolt at one of the bikes.
Yeah,
one of the bikes.
The one that probably
itself.
catches your eye, and of course this is entirely up to you. The one that probably catches your eye is the one that Ravenor just hit. He did quite a bit of damage, and your roll would have advantage on it based on what he just used.
Perfect. Yeah. So he'd see that and position himself, and fire off a big heavy bolt to try and finish it off, in its other wheel or whatever, to try and
absolutely.
Alrighty. That's a 16 on the dice, so that'll be a 23 to hit.
Yeah, that hits.
All right. Minimum damage, so 4 damage.
Use a domain die.
Oh, can I do that for damage?
Sure.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah, we got them coming out of our ears, man. I'm looking for ways to use these things.
Yeah, perfect. There we go. 9. So 12 damage total.
12. Let me look at that. Okay, so in combination with what Lloyd did, describe to me what it looks like as this bike loses control and just basically dusts off into nothing.
Yeah, so it does that thing where it's hit and it sort of starts swerving a little bit, and it just goes past that equilibrium and just starts toppling over end, and another Wilhelm screams as it sort of flies over the top of another couple of bikes. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just in the past now. It's just in that heap of dust that you all are kicking up. And if you were to see a long shot far away as the dust is settling there, the harpoon that you dropped obviously went. So you see that, like, this bike crashes and everything like that, and then you'd probably see the harpoon just land in the sand. Silence. And then this bike just over it, sort of like that cause and effect, like, right? So that's fantastic. Is there anything else you'd like to do on your turn?
That's me spent for this turn.
Beautiful. Awesome. So we're back to Koro.
So Koro is just wincing with pain, has this harpoon stuck in his leg. And what I'd like to do is I want to channel Soul Wind. So as an Uldane, I am in touch with the bleak. We call it Soul Wind. I'm sorry, not an Uldane, Grimdul. And I am going to channel Flame Wind. So I draw on any remains of the bleak in this environment, kind of internalize it, and it becomes flame. So everyone who makes a weapon attack within 30 feet of me, any of my allies, will get 1d4 extra fire damage on all attacks. And I would like to first pull the harpoon out, and then I would like to try to fire an arrow. So that's fantastic. Also will take some damage here.
Yep.
You want
roll that D6. Yep.
Ooh, that's a 5.
Okay. Ooh, ouch. Y'all are in pain.
So, and having done that, I just wince, toss it aside, and fire another arrow at the nearest rider.
Absolutely. Yeah, and there are 2 left. And so, go ahead and give me a roll. The rider's AC is a little higher than the bike, but not by much.
Okay, I'm going with 20. That's a 23 to hit.
That hits for sure.
And so I'll do that extra D4 of fire damage in addition to my D8 here.
Yep. And I would recommend, I will allow you to use, and I am a bad DM in this way. I am not keeping track of, let me double check the domain dice that we have. We're just getting so many that I had Keel use what basically, if anyone knows how many we have at this point, please let me know. But I was going to recommend that you use it for your damage and your fire damage. Perfect.
Okay,
So we
cool.
have 11 left. So Nate, please re-roll your fire damage. Basically, roll your
Yep.
fire damage and your damage with advantage.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I already got a 7 on my bow, so on the D8. So I'm just gonna stick with that. That would
That's
be
great.
that would be 11. But I will re-roll my fire damage because I got a 1, and that time I got a 2.
On the re-roll,
Yeah. So that's gonna be my
you
D4.
you can keep the higher result. I'm treating him like advantage.
No, I got a 1 the first time. I got a
Oh.
2 the second time. Yeah.
It was
double
so
worth it.
low,
It's
I
double.
was confused.
Hashtag worth it. All right. So
It
that
is double. Wait, yeah,
it's
Keel.
double. That's what Keel said.
That is, yeah. It's
All
smart.
right. Yeah. So anyway, that is a total of 11 plus 2, 13 damage.
Okay. So it looks
Flaming
pretty
arrow, basically.
pretty brutal. I was going to say, so this what I'll allow you to do is that the bike itself and the rider are alive, but that particular bike catches on fire as the soul winds and the smoke and all that stuff. And it's like, and maybe there's this ghosted, like strange, like Grimdal symbol in the fire when it first erupts. This very like weird, like, and then, now they're sort of padding. And so like this, so I will give anyone advantage against that bike who's trying to stay from burning alive and try to steer the bike with both riders on it. So that's fantastic. Is there anything else you want to do on your turn?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, killer. So the roamers, that particular roamer is actually going to use their action to try to put themselves out, which I'm going to basically use basically like some sort of sleight of hand to just, pat and give him some damage as well. That's a hard fail. I'm going to use one of my own domain dice to put myself out, please. And thank you. Okay, that's better. All right, so they're able to, like, between the passenger and the rider, they're able to, like, sort of like, the bike is still on fire, but they're able to put out some of the hotter parts of the clothing and the things like that that are flammable. And I will give them some fire damage for that. Of course, I roll a 4. So, all right, so let me mark that down. Okay, so that is going to be, I'll count that as their action, and then they're going to try to stabilize the bike, which is on fire. Okay, and they're able to do that. So that's 1. The driver is going to try, or the passenger is going to try to take a shot, but they are out of harpoons now. They're just shooting regular longbows and crossbows and things like that. So, Koro, you are the target there. So, does a 17 hit you?
Yes, it does.
All right, so that is all right, so an arrow, this rusted sort of weird looking arrow hits you for 6 damage.
All right.
All right, and so there's 1 bike and 1 rider remaining. And so they are going to attack Ravenor, who still looks like one of the largest threats. And so you see the passenger actually like put their fingers to their temples. And Thatch, you sort of get this weird sense that they're also connected with the bleak, and they just send you some nasty vibes. The equivalent of if you could swear at someone or wish them ill and death with a feeling. They sort of just... Okay, so 14. Does a 17 hit you, Ravenor?
Yes, it does.
Okay, beautiful. All right, so same thing. This sort of like this one will actually be more of like a crossbow, sort of strange looking. It's got a clip, like no ropes, nothing like that. So it's okay, and that's 4 damage as that arrow. It probably bounces off, but still, I would imagine again scrapes you, cuts you, some sort of maim like that. Beautiful. And that's the end of the roamer's turn. Thatch, you're up.
The bad vibes or the threats that were echoing through the bleak to Thatch is something that puts his wits to their end. He is enraged seeing one of his friends shot at, and digs deep into the power that he is now so deeply a part of. Reaching out, he is going to use some sorcery points, which I will just cross off,
Beautiful.
to quicken.
Ooh, nice.
He's
Very
going to
nice.
quicken hold person. So as a bonus action, he's going to reach forward and use hold person to grab the driver on the bike and hold him still whilst the bike carries on. Hopefully knocking off the guy behind him as well. That's up to you.
I can't imagine how he would stay on. Like,
so he's got to
that
make a
amazing.
save then, first of all, to see if I get him. So that's a wisdom saving throw of 14 that he has to beat.
Okay. Yep. Let's see. Okay. I was going to use the domain die, but that is a critical failure. And there's a part of my soul that would feel like that's cheap in my own personal way. So unfortunately, I'm not going to use the domain die because the crit fail. So I'll pretty much give you carte blanche because you win big.
Yeah, so he basically just clutches this guy and the bike just carries on without him. Are there any other targets left? Because that was just a bonus action.
So yeah, there actually is. There were 2 bikes left. That bike that you just had was the one that was probably, if I'm on the death bat, it's to our left. There's still one that's on fire. And that's the final one with the rider, and they're kind of like, just put it out.
Yeah, so basically then he reaches forth, whole person's this one guy, and then with his other hand, he just fires forth a bleak surge at the other target.
That's amazing.
For 22.
Yeah, that hits. Or was that the damage?
Sorry, no, that's the
okay,
the
I was like, yeah, so that definitely hits.
The damage on the D12 is 10 points.
That's
of
perfect.
Damage.
So the thing is, the way that works, if I'm not mistaken, the way we wrote the spell is it's sort of like a constant blast of bleak, right?
That's right. Yeah, he just fires forth a beam of it.
Yeah, that's killer. With such a high roll, if you choose to do this, right? And I'm just looking for ways to, I'm Brewster's millionsing these domain dice right now. I'm like, right. So I'm like, I'm trying to figure out, I will let you spend 2 domain dice to make that a critical hit.
I accept.
Okay.
Because why wouldn't I?
No, that's perfect.
So do I just add another die to that then? Because that was one that will make it 2 D12 rather than 1. Okay.
No, great question. So the way that crits work in Dragon Grid, at least in the optional rules that we have, one of the dice rolled for a crit automatically gets the max result. Right? So basically, you take max damage on one die, and then you roll the second die and add that damage.
So as I've already rolled that one then, which was 10, I believe.
Which was a 10. So
the other one is max, so 12.
You max
so 12
it and you give
10,
it correct. So you immediately
22 points of bleak damage then.
Describe to me what it looks like as the bleak destroys that arcanic motorcycle.
I think we see it as a really wide shot where we see the death bat and its trail of dust behind it, and we see the targets streaming behind it like locusts. And we see Thatch just basically grip one of these riders out of its saddle and just crushing him with one hand. And we see this beam of bleak arc from the horizon where the storm roils, and it is just channeled into this bike, and it is just set ablaze as it tumbles in a fiery inferno to a dead stop.
That's amazing. You get one more domain dice for that beautiful description. Everyone gets a domain dice. Excellent combat, very creative, awesome. And you get a domain dice, and you get a domain dice. Another quick shout out to Girls Game Shelf for sponsoring this particular session. And thank you to everyone who is being so generous. This is absolutely incredible. And we are nearing the end of our story, The Last Ride of the Deathbat. Let's see if we hit the title or if this is in fact the second to last ride of the Deathbat. So initiative order is over. You're out of combat. I will narratively let you guys kind of just explain what's going on, what you're going to be doing, but I'll let you know that you are fast approaching the domain of Goldrock, the Brighthold. You know for sure that one of the things that protects the Brighthold from all that would try to attack it is a ravine known as the Razors. Now, luckily, there's a bridge over the Razors. Of course, luckily, there's a bridge. But it's going to be tricky trying to get over the Razors. And anyone who's been in Uldane knows that it is unnaturally chiseled by the bleak that like flows like a river through it. So the rock walls and the stretches of the ground have been like refined into these impenetrable razor sharp edges that would shred most equipment and all organic material that would contact it. So it's not just like a regular canyon. It's like a bleak canyon of awful, crimson razor shards, but it's fine because there's a bridge. So what do you do as you approach the Brighthold? The Kawar is in tow.
Being an ex Oath of the Legion, like Marrow commander, would I know that this is heavily guarded, this bridge?
So it normally is. You absolutely would know. You would know that typically the Doomsayers as well as the Doomfang Gnolls would guard this very well, but you also know that it's the only way over the ravine.
I will inform them of that. It'll be guarded, so we can either smash through or we can try and jump it.
Keel, are you still in the air?
Oh yeah. So yeah, getting quickly mechanical. It's a 10-minute flight speed, but I can glide. I think pretty much like indefinitely. So I think since I'm tethered, I could probably, and I'm attached to the Drake wing.
Sure.
I think we can probably stay up there if you allow that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think so. The thing that you'd probably notice fairly quickly is that the bridge is destroyed.
Right.
So we jump it then, right?
So he would, Gavok would definitely shout that down. I hope you've got a plan. This bridge is out. Pick up speed.
The only plan we ever have is going very fast, he will say, and he'll like shout that to
Savannah.
Yeah. Like, punch it. Let's go as fast as we can. And if it's like a rock or something, or like a knoll that we can like bounce off to get off and get some air, perfect.
More anger to the rage cage.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is anybody gonna sit in the rage cage and really just give it what for? Or, you probably put that Lightfall defector in there. Old Beimer Lindholm. So
Amadros Caius, that guy.
Oh yeah, sorry, I wrote the wrong name in the thing because we changed it to a Talisar after I wrote it in the chat. It's that's exactly the right name, the one you said that I don't remember, even though you just said it. But yeah, so we'll call him Caius. So he's in there, and probably fueling this thing right now. So essentially, this is how it works. As the final stretch is leading into Goldrock the Brighthold, you have to succeed in a group skill challenge. Okay. You have to get a number of 5 successes before netting 3 failures to get the death bat over the ravine. So there are all kinds of things happening now as you get closer and closer. So I'm the one who tells you the challenge, and you decide who tries to overcome it and how. So that's going to be the difference here. So I'll let you all crew the death bat at this point. So Zavanna has the thing punched. Caius's anguish is fueling it, and so it's pressing. So it's going to be randomized, and I'm going to tell you that the first thing that happens as you're sort of one of the tires becomes jammed, and it's going to require one of you to climb outside the death bat and unjam it. Who wants to try that?
Me.
All right. The scene DC is a 14. So basically, you need to roll with whatever you think. You can still choose your skills and everything. 14 or higher. And we got domain dice coming out of our mitidas.
I reckon it's like insanely fast, and so he's like got the Marrow helmet on, and it's like barely protecting his eyes, and he's like climbing, pulling his way towards the wheel, and he has to like hang upside down, I guess, to get at it.
Sure, yeah.
So he like hooks his leg around one of the poles, and then another leg, and then hangs upside down, and just like you can see that there's like something stuck in the spoke of this insane wheel. And he thinks if he tries to pull it, he will break his hands. And so he's going to take his sword and just try and like hack at the thing and hope that it will like separate it out. So I think that'll be athletics maybe.
Perfect.
Woof. I'm going to use the domain dice. That's better. That's a 17 all up. So it's success, right?
Yeah, that's a success. Boom. So you hack at it. The wheel is freed. We go a little bit faster. And then, and the next thing that happens is, and perhaps this isn't something that everyone would realize, but one of you or some of you sense a strange, terrifying, impending danger. Something, and you don't know what it is, but it's just in your gut. You're just like, something's going to happen. We need to do something. What skill are you going to use to try to assess what that danger is? And who's going to do it?
Okay. Thatch is going to. Is it just like an instinctive feeling beyond the fact that we're driving towards a ravine?
Absolutely.
There's something else as well.
It has to be so bad that it would be like if you're already eating jalapenos, you taste something spicier. Like it's so impending that it's worse than driving toward your death. And it's probably more imminent. It's probably more immediate. Is probably the thing that sets it off.
So Thatch can feel this instinctual kind of feeling nagging at him. And he just wishes that he had more insight into this. He wishes that he could comprehend what the bleak perhaps is trying to tell him. But in another timeline, he can.
Yes.
And so,
yes,
using Timeless Mind,
yes,
he's going to change his skill proficiency into insight.
That's beautiful.
So now with it for this role. Oh, baby. So that's great. Let me just look up what my actual thing is for that, though. Let's just see. Yeah. Okay, that's 19.
19. So, and I'll even narratively tell you what you see, and then I'll tell you what happens. In half a second, you see in another timeline, as clearly as day, the entire death bat being crushed in an instant by the Kawar's foot. It's just over that fast. Unceremoniously, instantly, and without regard. But you're able to holler, and you just say something in this strangest bleak tongue. And Zavanna just knows, and she cuts hard left, and you see the Kawar's enormous foot pressed down so close to the death bat that you can smell what it stepped in on the way here. The whole thing sort of shakes. And that leads us to our next role, which is someone needs to give me, someone needs to help Zavanna steer between obstacles because it's become way too much. The energy that's being used to push the death bat, the manual steering, she just doesn't have the strength or dexterity to do it. So she needs someone to help her pull that wheel. And that's either strength or dexterity.
I can do that. Koro is very nimble and will be using dexterity just to steer, just so, keeping it steady and just those quick reactions that are needed to avoid doom.
Okay.
And that's going to be a 21. No, I'm sorry. It's just a dexterity roll, right?
Yes, and you can use whatever skill you think would work. So if that's sleight of hand for you, then you can absolutely use your sleight of hand to tweak the positioning of the steering wheel and those sorts of things.
So, I mean, just straight up dexterity is probably my best bet, and it's going to be a 19.
Okay, that hits. Now what I want you to do is you are going to give me an opposed dexterity contest to steer the death bat from the Kawar who goes to grab it.
Wonderful. All right, here goes.
Okay.
Oh, that's nice. Natural 20.
A natural 20. You listen to me, Nate Vanderzee. You listen to me very carefully. I used a domain dice myself. Jake, make a mark of that. And rolled a 19 on my second roll. And I was like, this is over. And I don't care. Like, they going down. So describe to me what it looks like as you escape the grasp of the Kawar.
So it's its hand, right?
Yeah, it's like.
Yeah. So I'm steering, avoiding these rocks and things like that, and I all of a sudden just catch out of the corner of my eye a shadow, more present, and knowing my surroundings at all times, being a warden, I know exactly where the sun is, and that is how I avoid the hand, because I know where that shadow is coming from, and out of the way.
And it works just enough. And so you have succeeded in figuring out how to outsmart and defeat these challenges in front of you. But there's one problem, Govak. The Drake Wing has seen better days because it's actually hit into the Kawar at one point. And so it's a bit of a ruin, and it's losing his attention right at the end. Is there anything you want to do? I don't know if anyone else could do anything. Just figure it out. You got any ideas?
Avok reaches back and unclips the ruined and tattered Drake Wing. Turns around, gets a crossbow bolt from the bandolier using his teeth, loads it in with one hand, and now fully exposed with the tattered Drake Wing cast aside, he looks over and reaches up and just tries to fire a bolt into the Kawar just to try and get its attention on him.
And as you soar past its teeth into its maw, as though it was the crevice of a large cliff, the stench is indescribable. The things that you see inside that it has eaten is not something we need to talk about because of the rating of the stream. And essentially, you're able to fire that bolt into the soft part of one of the creases of its nose, just one of these folds, and it just sort of catches, and it looks down at you, and it looks down at the Drake Wing. But then its focus changes, and it sees Goldrock, the Brighthold. But then it loses its attention for just a moment as the death bat exits the ground, flying over the ravine, and that catches the Kawar's attention. And as you are holding on, and you are the last thing that it sees, it's being pulled away from it. The death bat barely makes the other tire to the Brighthold, and you're essentially in front of this massive fortress. Doomsayers and the gnolls, the Doomfang gnolls, begin to team along the walls. And the Kawar steps over the death bat and begins to reach into the Brighthold. Paw after paw it begins to attack the walls of the fortress, tearing massive holes in the structure, eating them, eating the core, eating the things within it, eating the structure. And what do you do in the aftermath? In the wake of this, narrate to me the final scene of this story. I'll let everybody go around, and I'll let you guys go in whatever order you want as we wrap things up.
As we're driving away, we like cut loose the remains of the Drake Wing, and Ravenor at least is like sitting on the top of the roof, watching as the core like devours this hold of the enemy. And he like reaches into his pack and he takes out this bottle of like fine brandy that he had been keeping for such an occasion, and like pours a little lid full, and like salutes the choir, and then has a sip.
And he maybe then passes it to Govok, who's comes and slumps next to him, absolutely stinking of the Koa having like battered against it, being attached to the Drake Wing and then being breathed on by it. Probably some mucus, some bits came out. You know, he's wipes some of that off and takes the flask, has a big swig. To find another last ride. Was so close.
And we've done something for our people. Not so bad.
Be good to see this place in its former glory, he says as we go past another old ruined Granok Thane fortress. And he just imagines, as he always tends to do, he thinks he lives in the future, often to the detriment of the present. And his vision just sort of goes to what might be in this place now in a more mundane way than Thatch tends to see.
Koro, what's our driver's name again?
Zavana.
Koro kind of slumps over the dashboard, if there is one.
Sure. Yeah. Of course.
And puts his hand on her back, says, "Well done," and turns around to the rest of them, the rest of the crew. That thing almost smashed us. I think I was in your debt before, all of you. You saved my life. I think we might be even now. And then he sees Govok kind of, landing nearby from his glide and says, "Except you, that was some crazy stuff. I think I still owe you. We all do." And pulls out a map, and I imagine he's looking at Brighthold on the map, and he kind of starts scribbling a different shape to it, a little more jagged, ruined.
Thatch is standing there watching this Brighthold becoming devoured by this vast Kwa, the creature of the bleak, and he smiles, having been foretold that this roiling energy would eclipse a bright star. And then he looks into the many other times where many other settlements are being consumed by this creature. And his vision goes back to what we saw at the very beginning, where he beheld a great, vast egg being dragged before this creature to lure it to different locations. And he smiles. This will be a good idea for the future. And he smiles and looks to his companions and says, "Boys, I have an idea.
And sometime later, far, far away from the death bat and you, we're careening through, almost floating through the alveolus, this mechanical fortress. And as we swoop over the shoulders of these strange, bleak, worn marrow and these hags, these scraga of Dragongrin, as we wind through into its very belly, we come upon a strange device and a woman clad in this strange mask as we see Siro, the Stormbreather, peer into a glowing object. And she says, "Tell me more of these last chancers." And that's where we're going to end the stream. Thank you all for joining us in Dragongrin for the last ride of the Death Bat. Everybody, absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for being so generous. We're going to take all the rest of the domain die, and I'm going to give them to Siro the Stormbreather to catch the last chancers and flay them alive. So thank you. This has been amazing. You all are amazing. Jasper's Game Day is an honor to be a part of. And this is Tim from Absolute Tabletop, signing off.